and you're
Hey,
on.
everybody. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Wherever you are in the world, it's about 4:05 p.m. in Melbourne time. It was a beautiful day today. It hasn't. It's sort of a bit cloudy now, so yeah, it was good to get my run and do the lawn mowing and do the chores before this session. So got all the jobs out of the way. And really looking forward to presenting to you all today one of the services on SAP Cloud Platform called Business Rules. And basically, this is more a business viewpoint rather than a technical viewpoint, although I will be showing a few technical items. Yeah, so let's start. And just, fantastic to be a part of this great event. And don't forget to support Girls Who Code with the links and down the bottom you can see near the great sponsors. So let's get into it. Okay, who am I? Yeah, so started in SAP land in about 96. I moved down from Sydney actually to start on a new, basically a new project in Melbourne. So that was the start of my SAP career. You can see a few little numbers and so forth around it, and a few pictures and so forth. So basically, SAP champion in the SAP community, and those that know me, I love writing blogs in the SAP community and generally tweeting on a whole lot of SAP topics, which you can see the little tweet symbol down there, one of my favorite social media platforms. I've got a picture there. I run quite a bit, try and keep fit a few times a week. So that's a picture of me running. I'm a SAP Cloud Platform lover. I love everything about it. And you can see the 10 plus there. So basically being in charge of 10 plus landscapes, just basically architecting from start to finish. You'll see the 60 plus. So that's basically architecting and creating the back end design for over 60 applications now running on SAP Cloud Platform. So that's been great to be part of. I've got a picture of a movie. Not sure if anyone can guess, but Christopher Nolan's one of my favorite directors, and I love movies. So that's a picture of Interstellar. So brilliant movie. I've got a water bottle with a cross through it. Yeah, I can't drink water, basically. I don't really drink water. I don't feel thirsty, which is a crazy gene problem that I have, which leads to some interesting discussions. Not, that we'll get into that here. And in the top left-hand corner, I'm a little bit famous on the App Store. I've got one app. So kudos to me. It's basically called Faves. So I normally do a shameless plug. So yeah, that's who am I. So today I'm going to cover SAP business rules. I've been sort of working through business rules probably the last, 12 months to 18 months. But more recently, just really getting involved in a lot of projects where we're trying to utilize them more. For those that don't know, it's a service on SAP Cloud Platform, Neo and Cloud Foundry. And essentially, business rules captures business logic. Okay. It also allows decision making. Yeah, so we'll get into some of the tools you can use to do that. And but I've said, those that know me always hear me ranting about having zero business logic in applications in terms of the code base. So business rules, I think, is brilliant for that. Pretty much any business logic should be in business rules. Some of the projects I've worked on also involve SAP Cloud Platform workflow. So business rules and SCP workflow work hand in hand as part of the orchestration aspects and group of services there. And what you'll see through this presentation is that they're very easy to maintain, and I think can speed up app development because you can meet with the business, work out what the business rules are, even maintain it as you're sort of going through them in that session, and you can basically change them on the fly, and they're very powerful. So I've got the on the left hand side, you can see the other services I believe they work well with. Obviously workflow, which I've talked about. Cloud integration, you can run APIs for business rules to bring in some business logic to various interfaces. And more recently, I think SAP HANA. I read a few blogs the other day talking about integrating business rules with SAP HANA. Yeah, so I'm really interested in sort of working through those last two. I've done a bit with workflow, but the last two really interested in sort of working on more in the future. And basically from this presentation, I'll state from the outset, I'm not a gun, I wouldn't call myself a gun in business rules, but I know enough to just start the process. And yeah, I hope bringing a few more presentations and blog to the SAP community in the future, just delving a little bit deeper. So what do they look like? So basically, I thought I would just show a screen of basically the main project. And here you can see I've created a BR project _ SAP online track project. So basically all the artifacts that belong to those business rules are described by projects. Okay, they're basically the high level category that encompass all the objects that are involved in projects. So I would recommend, if you have different applications, different projects yourself, split them out by projects just to basically make sure you are categorizing them, and you don't just have one big one called business rules. And as you'll see when I demo, once you start getting a lot of objects and you get a lot of rule services and a lot of rules, it gets a little bit more difficult to sort of manage. But so yeah, definitely recommend splitting it by project. So you can see a few things on this screen. You can see the status on the right hand side. You can describe what the project is, and you can also show when they were created. You can see versioning, and that's really one big area I want to sort of get involved in the future, of trying to create multiple versions and then seeing how they relate to application development, and actually, how to distinguish in applications on which version you're reading. And especially over time, I think it's important. Business logic changes, right? So I think it's really important to try and segregate different different versions of that project into the future. So one part of the project, a major part of the project, is what we call business data objects. Okay. Now I've mostly looked at local data objects and local sort of instances of these objects. Yeah, and what they're made up of is essentially you have data elements, and I still, to be honest, don't really know where the data elements fit in exactly. I haven't been able to spend enough time on sort of figuring those out. But the other main ones I use are structures. So structures, I'll put a little note to the side here, is they're used for what we call first match decisions. And what a first match decision is basically where you bring in an input and you say, okay, here's an input, and you get a single result, okay, as opposed to tables, okay. In tables, we can get, we use these for all match decisions, where if you apply the input, you get a number of results, not only one. So they're what we refer to as all match decisions. And you'll see a little bit more when we go into the demo, how they play out. So when we talk about structures, we have an input structure and we have an output structure. And to me, the easiest way to sort of try and understand these concepts is it's an if and then else statement. So if these fields of the input structure are met, then we determine these output structure fields, okay? Now, again, if you want multiple records coming back, then you define a table, okay? And basically, for an all match decision, instead of basically aligning that decision with an output structure, you align it to an output table, okay? So that table will, of course, refers to the structure, but instead of the output structure being a structure, so to speak, it's basically a table to ensure you get multiple records. Hope that's sort of explaining it properly. The next part of it, the second step, is basically to define local rules. Actually, what I might do at this point is go into the project. So I'm hoping that that is showing properly, but so I'm in this project, okay? And you can see the list of data objects here, and you can start to see the type. Okay, you can see some structures, and here we can see a table, okay? You can see other things like, okay, great, it's expired. Let me log in again. But what you can see is structures, you can see tables, you can see data elements, and you start to get a feel for the detail. Okay. Go back to the data objects. Okay, so again, you can see some of these I've made active, others are inactive. Okay, and you can see some are structures and some are tables. Okay, so let's go into a structure. So let's go into maybe calendar list input. Okay, so again, like the projects, you can name them. You can, this is active, and you start to see what the attributes are. If you go into the attribute, you can go in to determine what this is. Now, input structures can have a number of fields, okay? And you can see here, this is a value list. And you can say, I've kept it simple with just state codes of WA. And I've just got Western Australia. Okay, you can edit and sort of include another value here if we like. Okay, we can add another value here, WA15, or even, WA, Western Australia. Okay, we can save that. Okay, we can go back. So up here, you can see also, you can quickly navigate back to any level that you want to look at. Because I know the calendar list had just the state code, we'll go right back to the input structure now. Okay, taking a little bit time to render. Okay, and you can see that. And then what we'll see, we'll go to the output structure. Okay, calendar list output. If you notice, you can see, I don't know if you notice something there, but because I changed the value, it's now set to inactive. So let's just fix that. You can perform a validation, and we can also do an edit and reactivate this structure just so we don't get any problems in further demos. Okay, we can go back in there. Okay, and if you notice, you'll see in my structures, I've got a naming convention there. So yeah, interested in people having a guess of why I do that. But let's go into the output structure here. And again, you can define, what the structure looks like. You can have a look at the different, so this you can see that it determines a lot of fields, okay, strings and calendar codes and various things. But that's a bit of a sneak peek to the upcoming demo. Might not give too much away just now. And let's move to the rules. Okay, so the rules. You can see, the first match, which is in the configuration of the rules, and you can also do all matches, and I'll show you that in a minute. But essentially, we have inputs, which to me, I equate to like an if statement. If these fields in this structure are met, then we determine a flat structure, one record, or we determine a number of records based on that, okay? Again, I'm only using local rules, okay? So let's jump in and see what that looks like. So again, I'll go into the local rules and we go into a rule called list calendars. Okay, you can see this is active. Okay, there's a few items here, and what I like about this is you can basically go through to, you can see a number of functions up here, which we can have a look at and describe a bit later. But you can start to see this if else structure that I'm talking about. Okay. So this use case we're talking about this afternoon is for an application around booking time in a calendar. And one part of it is showing a list of calendars that can be booked. So we'll go through that. But what we'll do here is I can show you I can show you as soon as you edit, of course, the status goes inactive. And what we'll do is we can add rows and so forth, which I'm not going to do here, but you can see here, we have the decision table settings. Okay. So what you can see up here is the hit policy. You have first match or all match, okay? So what you can see here, again, like I said, a first match is only one record. All matches will bring back all data for the conditions. Okay, you'll see the expression. So this is basically stating that when we run this API, we're going to pass in the state code of this calendar list input structure, and it must be equal to, right? But you can see here that you've got a whole lot of different options for how you determine these rules. Okay. If I look at the result target and the calendar list, if you look at what We don't want to do that. But this calendar list is basically, this was an output uh, structure, but it was a table. Okay. And you can see here that all these fields are editable. Okay. Just cancel out of that and we'll validate. Always validate, because you'll find if some of these fields are based on uh, a value help, if you get that value help wrong or you type in something that's not in that value help, then it will not work. Okay, what we'll do now, you can see the data here. So what I want to do quickly is, okay, so the rules activated, which is great. What I want to show quickly is basically, another important, actually, what I'll do now is I will just go through the rest of these, I think, and then we'll come back. Okay, just quickly, the rule service is another aspect, and that has in it what we term a vocabulary. And essentially, this basically just aligns the input with the result. And you'll see a lot of the existing structures and things that we've already created form part of that configuration. Now, the most important thing here is that the ID, the rule service ID, is what we use in the API call, which you'll see in a minute. Okay, and the rule set essentially has a rule service, and then it's basically assigned the rules. So it's pretty straightforward, really. All needs to be in place, though, for this to work properly. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll stop here. And what I'll do is we'll go back here and we'll go back to the project. We'll go back to the rule service. Again, you can see the only ones active are the ones that have been deployed. I will deploy again because we have made changes. In fact, we'll go to the rule service. One key thing to remember, if you change the rules, then go to the rule set, reactivate, and then go to the rule service and reactivate again and deploy. That's what I've found, that a bit of a tip. Just make sure everything's updated. Okay, we'll go to the rule service and we'll go to the list calendars and we'll edit and activate just to be sure. And then we'll deploy, and you deploy to SAP Cloud Platform, okay? Okay, so the first time you deploy, what you will receive is the ID, object ID field is populated. It won't be in the field list. So what you need to do is bring it in, okay? So what you can see here is this 31BB96271 code. And what you see, oh,
Phil, you have a question?
yes, yeah.
So Sajin is asking, any real life experience of business rules?
Yes, this, what I'm showing is a project I'm working out right now. And I only show screenshots, but the screenshots are from a live application using some of these business rules right now. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then I have a question of my own. How long does it
Oh,
take
yeah.
about to set up these kind of business rules? What is the time scale?
Very short, really. I think the key thing is meeting with the business to work out. I think there's a few things. One is working out what the business rules should be. So setting down, I guess one example that I've worked on recently and actually in the past as well is, let's say you've got a workflow application and you have various statuses, but moving through the statuses is dependent on other information. So what you could do is use business rules to say, okay, initial status is draft, but if we perform a confirmation action, then we move that status to confirmed. So what you could do in business rules is have a field called, you could have an input structure called current status, which is draft, and then a second field called action, which would be confirmation, and then an output structure that was the output status, which would then be confirmed. So you can do things like that. But the first thing is, yeah, meeting with the business and working through what the status should, sort of what those rules are. And secondly is getting that put into the application and working through just where it fits into either the view or whether it fits in with the drop down. And I've got a few slides to include a few more use cases like that. So, but there's a heap of use cases for this.
Great.
Some which I'll, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for the great answer. Another one. Do business rules replace BRF?
I'm not sort of au fait with BRF that much. But I'm trying to, any sort of hard wiring of applications or anywhere where you can sort of, even Z tables in the backend ERP system, TVAR variables, constants where you think that may change in the future, anything like that, I believe should be in business rules. And definitely if you're building applications on SAP Cloud Platform, definitely business rules is the way to go. Not sure if it's a full replacement for BRF, but I think they do similar things.
Great. And building on top of that question, how easy is
Yeah.
it to integrate with ABAP?
With ABAP, I know I've seen a few blogs and a few people out there I know from an ABAP, even a back end ERP sort of perspective, have run the APIs up through to the cloud platform and retrieved business rules from there and then utilized it in even ABAP programs in the back end. So I think essentially it's running an API, right? So you should be able to do that sort of from any sort of vehicle, if you like. Okay, so let me continue now. I hope that answered the question. So basically what you see here is the, so what we can do is in the API Business Hub, that's where you get all the information around the business rule API for Neo. Hopefully this is showing okay.
Phil, you're getting a lot of questions now.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can then, maybe we just let me keep going for a little bit.
With the questions?
Yes, if I
Yeah.
can, maybe let me just carry on for another 5-10 minutes and then we can come back to a few questions.
Okay.
So the API Business Hub is where you can go to get more information on how to incorporate the APIs. So basically this goes through, you know, and this is great. You log in and you can try them out and even a non sort of developer like me, even I can run them. and in Postman, as you'll see in a minute. And if I can run them, anyone can run them. So, but this is the place to go to learn about what you need to feed into them and, how they work. So the first thing is you need to use OAuth tokens to basically authenticate to utilize the rule service. So I've done this, and basically the authorization is an OAuth token. So what we'll do is we'll get a token, and you can see here I've got the OAuth services for my trial account and the client ID. So that is just in the security section of the trial account. You can set your own OAuth client. So this just asked me to log in. I'm using the authorization server method, and we'll authorize that. Okay, so we've got our token, we'll use it. So that's been added to the headers, and then basically the body is we use the rule service ID, and you'll see this vocabulary, okay, which if we run back here, we will see in our rule service the list calendars. Okay, what do we see here? We see vocabulary, and we also see a calendar list. Calendar list input. These are the reasons why I name these structures this way, right? So we make sure we know what the input structure is. And you can see here that this is the field we're using. And this field is basically the input field in this structure. Okay? So what we'll do is we'll send this. And if the demo gods are with me, which I'm hoping, okay, we've got a status okay. And you can see here, these are all the shed informations we had in the decision table. So we've been successful, which is great. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll go through, I did this and captured screenshots from this application I was talking about, and you can see here that the result that I just showed you, it got back these 5 calendars, okay? And then when we show a calendar, which is, we select one of those, we can see a calendar, okay? So this use case is about a calendar booking. Okay, so what I'll do is, the next thing I did was I enter a quantity. Okay, so this particular use case is for sort of agri-business where we need time slots for sort of booking of time. So if you look, what we'll do now is we'll jump to the business rules to see what it looks like when we have a quantity of 65. And you can see the before picture was 45 minutes. Okay. So if you remember that, what we'll have a look at is another business rule. This time we'll go and have a look at the we'll look at the determined time slot. Okay. Again, decision table. Okay, and if you looked at the calendar we selected, it was Albany. Okay, and you can see we've got these sort of time slot information of minutes. Okay, You can see this Albany STFE code, this product category. You can see when it's greater than, and you notice an expression here. So we're checking that the weight of the time slot is greater than 60 and the weight of the weight is also less than 75. 45 minutes, it's basically setting aside a 45-minute time slot. So what we'll do is we'll jump back to back here to the time slot, and what we'll do is we'll get another another token. Just this is another call, but our token should ring true because we just did it before, and we'll use this. Now this time, okay, the rule service ID again. Don't forget to grab the rule service ID. That's what I showed you before. Let's go back there because you can often get mixed up. It's not the rule set ID because the rule set ID exists as well. It's the rule service ID. So we're in the determined time slot. You can see this code here, 174E0931. 174E9. Brilliant. Okay. Okay, again, you can see the vocabulary. Okay, time slot input, and you have these inputs. Okay, so we've got a weight of 65. Let's run this and we should expect 45 minutes. Okay, bang. Okay, 45. Brilliant. This is working exactly as we planned. 45. Okay, so let's do something now. Let's go ahead. Okay, and let's update our rule and expand to 60. Okay. Now this can be,
Phil, you have 3 minutes left and 3 questions that are waiting. If you wish to
oh,
make the demo to completion, we can take the discussions afterwards and the questions in the unconference rooms.
yeah, cool. Yep. Okay, so maybe I'll just finish off. Maybe we'll just I can do the demo of that a bit later, as I want to just cover a few other things. But essentially, what I did is I changed this rule to I've changed this to 60 minutes, and you'll see that it runs now. You change this so it's 60 minutes and books that time slot. So that's just how powerful business rules can be. Okay, those other functionalities you can export, you can dump that whole decision table down, update and manipulate it, then import it again. So that's really cool, especially if things are changing early on in app development. Okay, so use cases. So things like opening and closing times, like if that calendar stopped at 5 p.m., you could have rules in there to stop that. Like I talked about before, moving statuses back and forth, activation of deactivation of pricing functionality, extending master data. Yeah, so there's a heap of my quick tips. Always test via Postman or another REST client. Think of meaningful names like input and output to make it easier to understand, etc. Benefits, lessens the impact of business requirements changing a few times, removes business logic from applications. Yeah, and you can read a few of those, and I'll be having the presentation slides available anyway. And one big thing is it's easy to export, so that's a major plus.
We're on
Yeah.
time, Phil. So
Okay. Cool. Thanks everyone for attending. yeah, sorry it sort of took a few bit fast tracked, but don't hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter and all the other social media, like you can see there. And definitely go to the Girls Who Code fundraiser and donate. Thank you.
Yes, and go to the unconference room number 1. That is where Phil will be able to continue the discussions and take the questions. So
Thank
when you
you.
are done, please just click